So I'm back again with another attempt at trying to demonstrate some relatively simple techniques for chopping up drum breaks on the Octatrack. And I'm coming to realise that obviously it's great for some things, it's not as great for other things. For example, loading a track, sort of building out a grouping of 8 sounds, which you can bring in and out and mute and unmute stuff. That's great, but it doesn't give you that kind of full song mode. And yes, I know there is the arranger mode, and I have used that a bit. I find it okay, it's not too bad, but it is quite I don't know what the word is, clunky maybe. It's not very fast, so getting a nice kind of 4-bar block of music is really great on this. And I think where it sort of struggles a bit is where you want to sort of build that out into a story, like a longer story. So the way I've been thinking about this is to use banks more often than patterns. So my current thinking is I'm going to be building out a set, like a drum and bass set on the Octatrack, and I'm going to be creating effectively up to 16 sections in the set, and each section, each bank will have its own set of stuff happening here. Now I know you have parts as well, and I may use parts, but my understanding of parts is that it leaves the pattern as it is, and it allows you to change machines, samples, and all the stuff up here basically. Now that might be useful, but a lot of the time I'm either using a static track running a sample, in which case the pattern is one trigger at the beginning of a 2 or a 4-bar loop, or I'm using very specific points in the sequence to chop things up. And what might work well with one chopped sample might not work well with another necessarily. So my current thinking is that I'm going to be keeping things limited to one pattern, possibly 2, depending on if I want to break this out into like an 8-bar kind of thing. But if you have, so bear with me, if you have one bank, so sorry, bank 1, pattern 1, and then you've got 8 sounds that you can play around with, so you can create a build-up of sorts. You can bring things in. When you've got everything sounding like you're ready to move on to the next bit, then you go bank, and then you choose bank 2, pattern 1, and then you're at your next sort of phase of the story, and then you can bring in more things and build up that energy. And then you get to the next stage where you want to sort of maybe create like a really big sort of riser, say. So it's bank 3, pattern 1, bring in loads of things, all, you know, crazy chaos. And then bank 4, pattern 1 could be like a complete drop, like not a drop, you know what I mean, like a sort of a breakdown, you know what I mean, just nice quiet time. And then bank 5, pattern 1 could be bring things back in. That is the drop, right? You know what I mean, right? So that's where I'm roughly thinking we could try and get a workflow that allows you to basically run a whole set just from the Octatrack. And this idea of mine doesn't involve any scenes at this point. It will, but for now we're using this as a production sequencer rather than a performance mixer. And in my humble opinion, you can use the Octatrack for both, and it's good at both of those things. What I don't know is how good it is at doing both of those things at the same time. So the other thing that I want to try and get into the kind of the workflow here is to build out quite detailed sort of surgeon level drum breaks, and that in itself isn't something. I mean, let me start again. So what I think I'd like to try and do, as well as creating a set that sits in a box, is to preempt that by creating my own stems, which I'll load back into the Octatrack. So I'm going to create, I'm basically going to create something like a 16 bar stem that I'm going to manage and perform and save externally using a different sampler, and then I could potentially then bring that audio back in to the Octatrack when the Octatrack is acting as a pure performance mixer. So there's a couple of options here, and I think maybe the first thing I want to do is just explore what I can do with a sample pack and some banks. So that's a lot of chat, sorry about that. I should say as well, I'm trying to keep this as beginner friendly as possible, but I think I may end up skipping over some stuff. So if there is anything you don't understand, just obviously put a question in the comments and I will try and get back to you quickly. Okay, so this is what we've got so far: bank 1, pattern 1. So you could kind of bring it in like this, right? That is where you'd be into bank 2, pattern 1, and you could sort of carry the story on. So that's the idea. So I kind of rushed the intro bit. You know, if you were playing it live, you might want to kind of even it out a bit. So yeah, that's the plan. So let's see what we can do. We just loaded a new bank, all statics, nice and fresh. So I'm just gonna sort of try and talk through my workflow, which to start with is just going to be bringing in another drum break. So I'm going to keep T1 as a static, and let's see what we can find. Yeah, like that. Oh, that's interesting. So I've just replaced what was in slot 1 on the static machine list with a new break. Does that affect what we had on bank 1? Let's find out. It does. Oh well, doesn't really matter. I mean, that's a good break anyway, but I think, you know, if this was a proper project, I'd probably make that a bit kind of more low-key, but let's go back to bank 2, pattern 1, and then we've got record trigger. Let's give ourselves 4 bars, and let's just see how that sounds. Okay, so it's a 2-bar loop, so we'll just give ourselves another trigger. Okay, fine to start with. It's a foundation, isn't it? So next, let's turn track 2 into a flex track, and then we're going to load in the same break. And let's just check that that is working as well. Cool. Now, I guess you could really kind of slice and dice it, but for starters, I think we'll just fire in some auto slices. So let's give ourselves, what is it, 2-bar sample. So let's do a 16, and then let's lay down a bit of a rhythm. Totally random. I mean, you know, it's not totally random. I've got a rough idea, but it might sound awful. Then we'll just apply the randomized blocks, and let's see what that sounds like. Probably rubbish. Okay, so straight away, it on its own, it doesn't sound very good because there's lots of breaks. It sounds very disjointed. What I found is that sometimes if you have the original break playing, then this kind of fragmented chopping kind of helps to enhance the original and give it something that's your own. It's a little bit kind of possibly a bit different, and then when you've got this disjointed fragmented overlay, you can then maybe change the tone a bit, change the filter a bit, just to give it a bit more character. So let's see what it sounds like together. Just hear the break on its own. So it's not that obvious what's going on, but it gives you a sense of variation, and I think with complicated drum patterns, you probably kind of want that. You know, things do get repetitive quite quickly, so having, even if it's imperceivable, just some variation, I think, is a good thing. And what we might end up doing is bouncing down some of these versions into their own kind of samples, so the work isn't lost, and we'll do that. Let's do that. We will do that. But I'm just going to play around a little bit with the fragmented layer. I'm going to add a bit of delay and a bit of filtering just to see if it makes any difference to the overall effect. I'll and the pitch as well, just to differentiate it slightly. So yeah, I think I can work with that. But I think it's interesting. There is I've got a plan for another track based on the original, but a slightly different version. Let me just try and demonstrate that. So we'll get another flex track here. We'll just mute these two for now. And then we'll load in the same break. And we're gonna chop up into bigger chunks. Yeah, 8 slices across a 2-bar sample. So what I will do is bear with me. So that doesn't sound brilliant, I'll be honest. So what I'm going to do, because, okay, so you never know. Sometimes you sort of chuck in some randomization and you get close. You rarely get perfectly amazing sounding thing, but you sometimes get close. That's not really close to me. So I think I'm going to now manually intervene, and going back into the record grid mode, we can see that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 triggers, and for each trigger I can decide which which slice to use. So let's just first of all remind ourselves what our slices are that we're playing around with. So if you go function down to slices, and then double click on that just to check slices are on, and now you have your slices, all 8 chunks that we made earlier. So let's just hear what they sound like. So 1 and 4 seem to be working quite nicely together. So 1 and 4. So let's go back here and we'll just hit these extra notes here. And now we can manually choose the slices. And I'm just going to go 1 and 4 for now, just to see what that sounds like. It's a bit manually intensive, this technique, but sometimes you need to just get into the detail, really. Okay, so that's just another kind of way to manipulate, you know, a basic drum break. let's take another flex track. And this time we're going to take very, very small specific drum sounds. And in this part, we're going to get into the slice machine, which is where you can really, really kind of get your surgery on. So let's just make sure we've got that break loaded into track 4. Now if you go into AED, I spent a lot of time in this menu here, and here we have the break that's been loaded in. Now, one thing to be aware of is that even though you can't see it here, I'm pretty sure that because we've used sample 4 from the flex list, because we've already chopped this and we've got slices, I think that those slices persist even though you've loaded that sample on a new track. So there is an association. If you use slot 4 as we've got here for a sample, and then if you use slot 4 on another machine, another track, another flex track, those slices don't go away. So the way to get around that is to load in the same break on a new flex slice. So now we've got the same break on 4 and on 5. Now for T4, I'm going to select this newer taken unsliced sample. I don't know, I'm not 100% if that's right, but I think it is right. So if it's not right, then, you know, sorry. But whatever happens, now we've definitely got a fresh unsliced piece of audio. No slices. Okay, so let's just do some digging for drum sounds. So we'll grab that first one, and then what else can we find? Okay, so what have we got here? We've got 4, 3, 2, 1. We've got 4 slices. So we can just verify that by going into slice mode, making sure that slices are on, and here we have slices that we've just taken. Cool. So my plan is to use those as additional variation or flavor on any one of these here. So let's just stick with the original, and then we'll just add in some additional bits. just randomly choosing some triggers here, and then I'm just taking a bit of a gamble, creating random locks from those 4 slices. Let's see how that sounds. One quick thing as well before I start messing about with that, you can hear the phasing happening there because you've got the same drum sound happening exactly over itself. So I think one way you can get around that is to just change the pitch a bit, and maybe a bit of filtering as well. Let's just hear what that sounds like on its own. All right, now with the original. So it gets a little bit head jarry after a while, but I think what we've got here is probably enough for now. So let's leave it there.